ये खड़ताल हैगी देखो वाह 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 Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Paolo. It's a pleasure really to host you today in the conversation, which is the 18th Mēlā, the 18th episode of the YaarAnād Virtual Baiṭhak Series. And it is. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because normally we've had a very dear friend, sharing with us the idea of the modern drums. The drum set. Adam joined us from Warsaw in Poland just the other day, and I was really keen in understanding the advent of the percussion in the classical music, in the Western classical music. Not just, that the drums are, as we know, the modern set, of course, is not more than 120 years old. But the idea of drumming, as we know, I served the oldest school of percussion in South Asia. My school goes back to 5 centuries and a half and beyond. But the idea of the duff, the circular drums, and even the like the bongo congo kind of drums are ancient. We see them in sculptures and ancient paintings and the murals. But I really was keen to speak with someone who is a scholar and a top performer within the field, and I was very glad that Maestro, very dear friend Luigi Polsini said, well, if you want to do that, there's only one person to speak to. And here we are having a conversation about that, exactly that. So I'm very glad. I'm very, very happy that you could join us. I know you're busy teaching, and of course you're a music therapist as well. I'm very grateful that, and you're teaching online. So it's not that because there's a lockdown that you're free. You're busy.
So, Bhai, thank you so much for inviting me first and for giving me also this opportunity, responsibility a little bit to introduce myself inside of this amazing program and amazing work that you do, and I'm very grateful for it. I was seeing some very nice videos of great masters, and was for me very nice to learn from them. So I was the first beneficiary of this, and thank you for including me in this
it is my pleasure. How could we not include you? Would be the question. Your work is fantastic, because I had actually we connected earlier through social media. because I had seen, some of your work with Maestro Luigi Polsini and the etiquette. So it's very sensitive the way percussion has been used in the Western classical music, the way it is included. I mean, we see big orchestras, the cymbals and the some of the drums that are played very, very carefully, very, very intelligent weaving. So I was very keen for a long time to have a conversation, not just, we listen. If somebody wants to listen to you, there's plenty of that in YouTube. They can see you in concerts. But to have a conversation so that we would become more informed listeners, we could become connoisseurs, if I may. So it's really a great opportunity to be in conversation.
It's amazing, yes. I really focus all my life really up to the things that you mentioned, yes. In which terms? So from I really like to work with sounds. In the beginning, I think I believe, and I love to call it a sculpture of sound. Where is rhythm? Of course, it's possible. Where is chaos? Also is possible, and everything could be very, very touch the emotion of the people that listen in very different way, and it's very, very curious, and it's very, very fascinating to me, the powerful that impacts people with just sounds. I start with you remember some sounds of that immediately remember to people the sounds of the nature, and so in some way is a language. It's a language that we learn from the first day of our life. The sound of the language of the sounds, and it's very, very important. And I work definitely with landscapes of sounds in for example, my set of live percussion concerts, or when I collaborate with various artists. But I use this set also with classical, very, very classical sets. Exactly as you already mentioned. Why the classical musician? I'm not classical, I'm sorry. I was studying from my family and from the travels, my work of musician. And I'm very respectful for the classic in the sense that we know, okay? And they like so much because the spontaneous waves that create the sounds in terms that I believe is more powerful when you propose inside of contemporary music, but also like the work that we had with Luigi Polsini is very, very close friend of me, and actually the best that we have in Italy in the gamba, and it's the boss, because he knows really is a very it's a friend, but I still have the respect of the master, It's yes. And just with him, he asked to me to be free to interpret percussion up to Caccini, Monteverdi, and Kasperger, and composers from the 15th, 16th centuries. Sounds like the sounds that you hear already, frame drums and tacchiolette and videophones and objects, and for create like he has to me a melody with the sounds, not just with the tunes, that means with the sounds. And of course it's very, very, like I said to you already, and very grateful for you ask very perfect question. Yes, it's very, very important because I use this language also in my setting of music therapy, because it's very incredible to see that is take the part of really a language, the music, and doesn't matter if you talk the same language with people that you get, or maybe have different way to understand the world and the life. For example, the special people needs, and or the kids, for example. They use the sounds when they play their games. They use sound. Why? In the same way that I use for create narrativa. A narrativa with sounds that creates some landscapes amazing in the people that listen.
Right.
I remember an amazing cycle of lesson with the maestro Sanjay Kansabanik, that is in Roma. I love also the maestro Sanjay. That's one of the last tabla lesson that he gave to me. He teach to me the tintal of the elephant, that describing all the things that with the elephant. Sorry, that moving, that have his work, that drink water, and all describing by the
music. Can you recite it?
More or less, yeah. When he was walking around with the master, Yes, and yes, as a language, I try to use by the using of the fingers, just the fingers, working in several way that coming from several cultures that I was learning from. Several travels and journeys that I had in Iran, for example. I was meeting crazy, amazing musicians that gave to me good elements up to the daf, the Iranian daf. That is also one instrument that I really love, that you mentioned some minutes ago. Yes, and for example, this instrument is very ancient, very old, and yes, you can meet miniatures of the Middle Age in Europe, but also in Persepolis. I was in the amazing Persepolis site, in the archaeological one, and there was a procession of people in the Bassorilievo that walking with triangular and circular frame drums. And also with objects like this.
Yes, which is very similar to Khartal. I was sharing that with people. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, that walking. So, and we have already also miniatures up to the same instruments in the 1200, in the Middle Age time in Europe, in the Cantigas de Santa Maria. In some codes where some miniatures is there is people that walking with these instruments.
Right.
But I think that is not incorrect if we said that the frame drums was working with the human beings from I don't know, Neanderthal time probably.
Oh, yeah. It's been there from the very beginning. Yeah.
Because
allow me to
Very simple objects. It's just a ring of wood and just a skin, and probably is coming from the objects, the setaccio, that people using for cleaning the rice or the grain.
That's how, exactly.
And these instruments, for example, simulate this sound, the shaking sound, and also the sea sound is coming from amazing luthiers, Terre d'Aria and Teta Drum, from here, from Florence, where I am.
Yeah. I see. And so allow me to introduce you now. I will read your brief and summarize it in Punjabi, my mother tongue. And then we'll continue our conversation. And we'll listen, in fact, then we will listen to something from you first before we get into a series of exchanges.
Bless,
friends, it is my pleasure to, again, as I mentioned, to host Paolo Rosetti Murito in this conversation. He's a percussionist and a music therapist. He, is a singer as well. As you will witness him, you'll, get to hear him play and sing. And he's a maestro of the frame drums and cajon. And he was born in Santa Vittoria in Mantenano, a small village in the countryside outside Sibyl in the Marche region. He grew up in a family of leather and footwear craftsmen. I need to have a conversation with you on that. I've designed some of my shoes, and I'm wanting to meet with people who can do it for me. So I do plenty of stuff my own. We'll have a private conversation about that afterwards.
Yeah. When you want.
So well, look at that, isn't it? And of course, farmers. Yes, farmers and in lost time players of and the players people who knew the folk music and the tradition music that has nearly been lost. He is self-taught, of course. His grandmother, Gina, gave him as a real singing tree the information and energy necessary to create his sounds on the drum and his songs he writes and sings. And his, study of percussion instruments and the songs of the oral tradition of his land, it began in the 90s. And it sort of inspired him to broaden his horizon and his vision, and he began to, travel. So something which I've shared with you always, that if a musician is not able to take me on a journey, I get suffocated. So I need to be moving. I need a musician who begins from somewhere and reaches somewhere. And a person who's not traveled, traveling for concerts is not the travel. Traveling when you're learning is the key. Usually we find people, Maestro Bhai Baldeep, would love to study from you if you're not expensive. Oh, Maestro Bhai Baldeep, I would love to study from you but if you only stay near my house. So they have no idea of journey, no idea of what is it to, that the real payment, if at all, I am from the indigenous pedagogical processes where we believe that knowledge can never be purchased. Knowledge is granted. It's a gift from the maestro to the disciple. And the real maestros are not people you hire to teach you. But yes, there is a whole process of institutions. The way they run is different. So I'm so glad to share with you that the moment Paolo had this inspiration, he wanted to broaden his horizon, his vision, and he began traveling. He undertook trips so that he could gain insights from various parts of the world. He wanted to explore newer possibilities and gain musical experiences. He wanted to experience music, and that's what it shows. What is on display when he is he's working, when he works. And he plays and he contributes, whether he's participating in ensembles or his own work, or he's healing as a music therapist. And his interest has been also the methodology. That's something which is very pleasing for me personally. He has been to Iran. In the conversation, as you would have heard, that he's also studied the art of duff, for example, and that he's been inspired. He's been to Morocco, he's been to Crete, he's been to Spain, Turkey, Ecuador, Denmark. and he's approaching the study of instruments in their places of use. Now, that's very important. You do not want to, in my very dear friend, Professor Randy Hester, formerly of the University of California, Berkeley, who was a professor of, he called it landscape architecture. Now, but then he called sacred landscaping. Now, what was sacred landscaping about? Sacred landscaping simply meant that you do not bring, let's say you are creating an orchard in the Sahara Desert. Now, you do not bring a Japanese garden and plant it there. You do not do that. He spoke about that if you're creating something somewhere, then you are basically, asking the soil to evolve, to grow what it has grown for thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. Now, that is very crucial in that sense. And the idea of this very idea to travel to the place where an instrument is in use is pure gold. We want to bring things to our place. We want to reduce things to our comfort level. We don't want to stretch our limits. We don't want to grow. It's like a plant which just grows two leaves out of the ground and says, now the sky should come to my height. I don't want to scale the height. So I'm so glad to share with you that he has in order to learn the methodology, he has traveled places, but so, precisely that he has made it a point in his biography that he wanted to go to the place of their use and practice and studied with the local performers. Now that's
exactly. Was a challenge when I was young to go in Tehran to stay 6 months there, and yes, was a very, very incredible, beautiful journey. I traveled around, meet crazy, amazing people. But yes, was a challenge. And also in Spain, I was living 2 years there for learning very well the flamenco, not just the music, but everything to go inside of and I was there working with the farmers, and I believe a lot in the musician that grow up with artisanal way to form, as you mentioned. It's very, very good because it's okay to learn knowledge from maestros. It's really, there is a level of knowledge. There is another also, I believe, that is the really deep, very, very deep, is the experience that you can just grow when you have experiences. When you meet with people, you have the shock of the meeting, of the instruments. I was there for learning a little bit up to the tombak, the zar, and they come this Shekofeh, this beautiful teacher that played to me a daf. It was the first time for me. I mentioned something of 15 years ago, 17 years ago, something like this, and it was shocked to me, and I was really engaged to learn this instrument very, very precise there, with the shock of the differences of the cultures also, to talking that she don't talk English, and I was also in the basical with English, so one Italiano and one Iranian learning, and yes, and also in Maghreb was the same. There I was studying with some women that play bendir, but Berber, okay, in a village. Mm-hmm. And I was staying there 3 weeks just for this. Was something like research and at the same time a way for try to build myself as a tower of the mattoni, of different parts. That one is coming from there, other coming from there, for my language. And my language coming from the deep, Gina, my grandmother. Yeah. This coming. And the languages is influenced. So I try to don't put just flavors of India, like I said to you now, no? Or just with some sounds or some timbres that can give you the ideas of. But it's just that there is just a part that is talking with me. That is my language that I use, that coming from Nonna Gina, from my albero del canto that I mentioned.
That's fantastic. So let's begin the journey from. We've spoken multiple things. One, we spoke briefly about the idea that the drums are these kind of drums, the ones that the duff and others that are, whether they are circular or triangular, that they're very old. We find them in murals, we find them in paintings, we find them in sculptures and motifs, even simple drawings, cave drawings, and all that. Let us begin from there. What is the oldest percussion instrument that you have today in your studio?
I think
the one that takes us back in time.
The more older is this thing.
I see.
Exactly. Yes.
And this goes way back. This is a shape that goes way back.
Really.
Can we get to hear this first? Shall we? Would you like playing for us?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. Let's start from there. Let's start from our childhood.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Fosse festa ogni mattina, voglio bere, voglio cantare, non me ne tende fatica, non me ne tende fatica, non me ne tende. In mezzo al campo voglio fare una fonte per darci a bere alla sera tua amante. Se ci venisse a bere un mio parente, se che de fonte non ci date niente. Una tazza d'acqua e fiorina, a te che venga a bermi tanto, ma una tazza d'acqua e fiorina. sarà quelle fiorina rama perché che venga per chi tanto mamma, perché che venga per chi tanto mamma. Una tazza d'acqua del fiorina rama perché che venga a ber chi tanto mama.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
My apologies to everybody. There was some connection issue. My internet went off and it just stopped. The streaming just stopped, and I'm very sorry for that. It's just beyond my might. Me and Paolo were just enjoying. He was playing, and I was listening, and so were you. But the connection just said, oops, some Wi-Fi or internet connection, the transmission just stopped. So my apologies. I'm grateful you've joined back, all of you back. Later on, I'll put the two videos together, and hopefully we'll have one composite video. So tell us about what you were playing, Paolo.
Yes. So it was in the beginning one sort of improvisation up to the sounds of the instruments without any rhythm, and just forgive the one picture about some emotion and some stuff. And when I give just these sounds, I started with the rhythm. The rhythm that I was starting was really a traditional rhythm of shamans from South Korea, shamans. Their rhythm means chilche, and it's very, very interesting. And normally the chilche rhythm, cycle rhythm, is played by a tam-tam, traditional tam-tam, that doing the cycle that I played, that was tom to tak, tom to tak, tom to tom to tom to tak, tom to tak, tak, tom to tak. And the name Chilche is it means 7 bells, because this 7th step of this cycle of rhythm. And start another one, and the cycle, entire cycle, is 36 beats, and it's very good as an example of the focus that you asked to me, to play for you something ancient. In which terms ancient? For me, ancient, it means looking for example, the shamans' repertoires, or looking to the people that using this instrument as an instrument of folklore, or popular in terms that we use in Italy, musica popolare. It means something that's coming from the people that have not the knowledge for the music, for example, but have this background of music, that the musica popolare, and also this type of repertoire, the repertoire of the shamanism, is really, really interesting. It's really interesting because it's in some of the repertoires, some of the cultures of the shamanism around the world, because exist a lot of around the world, there is some that have repertoires, really repertoires for using them for some specific topics.
I see.
Yes, and this is part of this repertoire, as a lot of rhythms. This, especially the Chilcher one, is one composition of 7 steps, 7 bands, as I said to you, and yes, all the rhythm, the sound really as a melody when you play really slowly, really a melody.
Can you demonstrate that? Just
yes,
in this case, yeah.
For example, the first 2 steps in 5 and 3, 3, 5, 10, and 5 other time. Will be, for example, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and 1. Rhythm, coming really a composition that changed completely is silhouettes. I don't know in the musical form that we listen, and it's coming from melody, really a rhythm, really tribal in my opinion. That is this as I play. One. This is a very example of so my way, one of my ways to intendere la musica antica, to talk about the origin of the human being, using the music as a direct language, and as in the villages in Africa that using for communicate stuff like I don't know, coming big tempest and try to be prepared, and there is a special rhythm. It's not this, but
can you play the African, the one that you're mentioning? Why don't you demonstrate that? It would be fantastic.
Africa. really repertoire about it, but from the especially the African culture, I really respect all the cultures, and where I was and I learned, I say I was and I learned.
Yeah.
But African
Your
world
observation, yeah.
is a part of in the future. In the future, bye. I will go.
Yes, yeah.
I have a plan to go to Senegal with a friend, a griot, a friend of me that he was in a family of.
So, what about when you mentioned about the duff? Of course, as I mentioned, we spoke about the ancient. So, thank you for the demonstration of the native. Of course, as a luthier, I'm also someone who has recovered the taus, the rabab, the sarandas, the pakhavaj of Punjab and the jodi of Punjab. These instruments that have been recovered by me from extinction, they were all extinct or near extinct. Their pedagogies had been lost. So fortunately, I was able to meet the last masters who were born in the last decade of the 19th century when I was very young, and I was able to actually, with a purpose to recover, I worked with them. A lot has been recovered. But what I see as a luthier and as a percussionist and as a researcher and a collector of narratives, I'm a person who's been working on the intangible heritage and conservation, tapping into the memories, as I've always, as I've been saying, crying out loud for a long time, that any civilization lives in the memory of its people. You detach the current uninformed generation, the younger generation, with the memory bearers. There you have a death of a civilization. Because at times, you have written records can be destroyed in natural calamities, like Pompeii. We are sitting in Italy. Pompeii just got destroyed when Vesuvius decided to blow nearly 2,000 years ago. So there can be natural, floods, for example. Rains can play havoc. My teacher's, Arjun Singh Tarangar's, this thick diary was lost. All the ink was lost because the ceiling fell apart in the village, and nobody went there for 2 months. And because of the heavy rain, all the ink was, washed away. So things can happen. We have to more often than not rely on the memory. So memory is actually the first source. Books are the last resource. So when you don't have actual living memory, then you look for books. But I have seen stupidity within the field of anthropology and musicology and all the ologies that they are looking for books even when you have living traditions. They don't study life; they study death or people who are dead, etc. So that's that's another story. But in the absence of when we have murals, the point I'm wanting to make is as follows. We go to the murals, we see an image. We see old paintings and drawings, we see an image. But those images don't speak out loud. So how do we know it was played? I've been recovering, I've pioneered the recovery of so much of South Asian heritage, from Luthery to raga, tala systems, etc., the repertoire, the pedagogy, the evolution, the way the percussion evolved, and so on and so forth. Once things are lost, they're gone. You cannot recover them. You can make an instrument, but you cannot replicate, the repertoire. Then you're imagining. That's a hermeneutical curve, as I say. You're assuming, or you're interpreting, or you're estimating, because you lost the actual, right? The moment you lose the actual. So I'm very sort of moved by the idea, by various ideas, but one more that you've actually gone to the natives, to the memory bearers, to the folklore, to the people in the who are the soil of who are the civilization, not the bourgeois, not the ones who have been detached from the roots in a way. So that's very fascinating. If you go to Iran, for example, do you have an Iranian duff with you today?
Yes,
Iranian duff. Would you mind?
Yes,
Yeah, would be fantastic. Yes, I'll be very grateful if you can take us to Tehran or or the village that you went to. And that's a very particular instrument. Oh, look at the skin; it's so thin.
Yeah.
Is it actual skin or is it plastic?
This is the plastic one. I have also natural skin in there, but I need to warm it powerfully before. You know,
can you also bring that? Can you bring that?
Of course.
No, leave this here. Don't take this away. Bring this too. Don't take it away. I want to. The point I'm making is that he said something very important shared with us. He said that the original, the skin needs to be warmed up. Imagine there's a life to it. Then there's a plastic one which can be played just like modern age. You just pick it out. It's like fast food. So this is the original skin, and that needs warming up. So the reason I requested you to share this, share with us, is I want us all to see, all the listeners to see, what does it sound before it is warmed up, and what does the other one sound which emulates when it is fully warmed up. Can you play a bit? Fantastic. That was absolutely brilliant. Now, that's brilliant. Now, can you demonstrate the one which is the other one? This is the leather one, pure leather, just to see the difference, to share the difference with our listeners. Yes.
Gold leather inside of a circle of 38 centimeters, and this one is a little bit bigger, as the traditionals. Really, the traditional one is a little bit bigger. And is with synthetic skin.
You can see the bass in it, yeah. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much.
This is a bigger one. This is
Yeah.
a stuff from I buy in Isfahan. I think 50 years ago. There is ottone little rings inside that give the sound of yes, and yes, as a frame drum is the duff is really one of the most older way to interpret this type of instrument because exists the sound of the rings inside is of course one abbellimento for the sound, the principal sound as this way, no? But have also his life that you can play as a one, as a in quarti, in ottavi, you can play as a and at his life you can use the vertical line of the body and also the horizontal line and vertical line. Horizontal in with this hand, and also vertical when you play in this way.
Can you demonstrate them together? 1, 2, 3, like
that?
that?
Of course. Well, the one way is that using mostly the horizontal way. As I play, it's a mix of various languages of the frame drumming around the world up to the duff. But I use first the first line, the horizontal one. Using more also vertical sound. Horizontal. Vertical. Both together. It's always important the sound of the rings inside, because it creates probably the name also of the instrument, duff. Duff. The sound of fur. I think that is a little bit onomatopoeic also. I don't really know, but you can find instruments like this in the lot of places in the Middle Age side with similar name. In Turkey, for example,
I was
this
about to ask about Turkey. Yeah.
ones, yes, the name is def, and the def is a Sufi instrument. Of course, as also the daf one is one of the instruments of the.
Also used in the Sufi parampara, yes.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. And the def is more or less as the daf without the rings inside, and play in this way or in this also way.
Also.
Okay. Also, yes.
Can you play a little solo? I mean, little or big? I mean, on the Turkish drum as well.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Otherwise, we'll get accused that we're only talkers and not players.
Yes. Rhythm, I would like to show you an aksak that I really like. It's in nine cycle in 9 beats. It's 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. Doom tak doom tak 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 doom tak tak doom tak doom tak tak doom tak doom tak tak.
Wow, wow, wow. Fantastic. And Mattal, I mean, they do 9 beats. Often, how many other rhythms do they do in Turkey? Are there other 9 beat, 10 beats, or are there different patterns? Can you share with us some of the different cycles they do?
Yes, yes, of course. One also, this is in the nine. So first, the repertoire of the Turkish rhythm is really awesome, beautiful, very, very vast. Very is hundreds of different type of rhythms. This is very interesting the way that they thinking melodically, yeah, because following the melodies sometimes, and this is like very, very interesting thing. In my opinion, one very good is aksak semai. Aksak is 9/8. Aksak semai is in 10/8. That is really. I take as an example because it's really, really melodic one, and the cycle in this way: doom, ta, doom, doom, ta. 1, ta, doom, doom, ta, 1, ta, doom, doom, ta, ta, doom, doom, ta, and it works in 10. It's in ta, ta, doom, doom, ta, 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 doom, doom, ta, 1, ta, doom, doom, ta. Same as the sense of the Cilce as before. It's really melodic when you play in this way, yeah? But when you play a bit faster, change his sense. It is very, very nice. And this cycle rhythm is doom it is in a 10 8. And also from the Anatolian, this part is really full of a lot of different folklore that playing a lot of 7/8 beats, 9/8 beats. They're really interesting. Huh? I put just the second charge to my apparatus. Yes.
So, also something that what we've learned today is the fact that yes.
Can I move a little bit? It's possible to move a little. Thank you so much.
We'll manage. Yeah.
Yes. Merci.
It's been fantastic. सानू देखने लिए बड़ा अच्छा मतलब काफी ज्ञान दी गल है कि किवें 9 मात्रे 10 मात्रे इन्हां दा जड़ा वर्णन हैगा टर्की दी जड़ी परंपरा हैगी है डेफ नू वजाउण दी अपने आप च कितनी अमीर हैगी है और ये अपने आप च काबिले गौर हैगा जड़ी वार्ता हैगी है कि ਅਸੀਂ देख रहे हैं कि इसे साज का किस तरीके नाल रूप बदल रहा है उन्हां दे आकार बदल रहे ने वो छोटा वड्डा हो रहा है जड़ा हुण देखिया आपां टर्की दा बहुत छोटा डफ सी दे विच छैणे भी लगे हुए से जिन्हों आपां छैणे छणकने कह दिंदे आ और ओदी वरतों किवें हो रही है सो ये आपां उन्हां ने अपनी जिहड़ी कंप्यूटर दी उन्हां दी तार लानी सी उन्हां ने ला लई आपां उन्हां नूं वापस लैने हैगे आ नाल हुण So you're back on the screen, Paolo. Thank you for adjusting and putting the wire up. This is now, for example, in our system. If I may share, if you don't mind, a couple of rhythmic patterns. Of course, you're versed with some of the tabla that you've had that learning, but tabla is a recent instrument. Now, many people say that it is very old. It is not. It is actually people know the actual history. Tabla is a blend of the nakara, the tasha, the left with the metal one, is a nagara form. It is not the jodi or the pakhavaj version, doesn't come. The poda, the right-hander, is taken from the pakhavaj. But the repertoire, also the old one. Of course, tabla is an adaptation of, the pakhavaj. You go back in time, you look at some of the syllables are non-existent in the tabla now because people have forgotten. It's like having a language. I mean, somebody speaks very simple Italian or somebody can speak a very literate, very learned Italian with very complex words and sentence formulations. So the percussion, when it's at its finest, it has a very rich language. It is not a very ordinary or illiterate language or how we say poor in terms of its utterance. Look at some of the mnemonic syllables, if I may share with you. In 9 beats, for example, it will come 3 cycles. Or let me start with the 1 cycle. Dha, dunge, nat, treta, kai, trigradhe, tit, ke, dhan, dha, dunge, nat, treta, kai, trigradhe, tit, dha, di, ke, and then 3 cycles, for example, or 4 cycles. Dha tir krdhet katta geddi gedna dha karnak trirdheta tagitrgrdheta geddi gedna dha di dha karnak trirdheta tagitrgrdheta geddi gedna dha di dha karnak trirdheta tagitrgrdheta geddi Di ghenna dhi ha dunge nat treta. For example, this whole, what Professor Saxena called the wild waywardness of the typical Amritsari Baj, where I come from. So, did you find something like this in Turkey or in Iran or in the West, like composition? This is just one pattern, and we have like thousands of them. It's not one, like thousands. I know several thousand compositions, right? And masters before knew tens and hundreds of thousands of compositions. I have not served because being a dedicated, conservator, trying to revive the whole entire gamut of my tradition, I have not been able to serve as much the percussion Many percussionists used to tell me, don't play because you're stealing our food. When I was playing in the 90s, I said, don't worry, I'm busy with conservation. I won't come on the stage. Being the head of the tradition, I know a lot, right? But I don't get to play that. This is one. If I may come to the 10-beat cycle, I'm publicly perhaps sharing it for the first time. Of course, some of my students know this is a very rare composition. Nobody else on the planet, I think, remembers this.
Oh, please. Yes.
Nine, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's a very rare, this is an ancient composition typical for my school, and only the heads of the tradition had this repertoire. I'm sure now many people will copy it, because many people copy stuff from my playing without even taking my name. So I'm sure this is going to be copied too. But there are certain aspects about playing technique they won't know, because they can only listen to it, not learn how to play it. But anyway, my job is to play the seeds, and I want the orchard to flourish. I'm not planting an orchard, I'm planting a jungle. So more the merrier, more seeds out the merrier. That's not my problem. But my question here is, from a slow tempo, like a composition which went 4 cycles in 9, or this is, for example, 8 cycles in Jhaptal or Sulfakta, whichever, depending on the pace that you have, it'll be multiple of either. If you're doing very slow, it'll be 4 cycles. If you're going faster, then it will come in 8 cycles. If you're going even faster, it'll come in 16 cycles of 10. This is only played in 10 or 15 beats. We don't play in any other tal. So this is like dedicated repertoire. So my question, therefore, did you find in the Middle East, in Africa, or here in Europe, did you find only patterns and some improvisations in between? Or did you find actual compositions which are carried from generation to generation, like heritage compositions in a single cycle? What did you find in your researches?
Thank you for the question. Thank you. Because I think that in one way, the rhythm is, as a classical Italian, I like to think that the poem coming with the rhythm, okay, with the metric, okay? And Dante Alighieri, for example, is one very good example, that using the rhythm of the syllabs for creates a special way to, a moment is a suspense, a moment is walking around, a moment is really, so I come from this culture, and we have also in Italy a lot of reference where the syllab way to pronunciate the syllabs create a special rhythm forms that is not in 8 or in 3 as we are normally thinking. For example, there is 1, there is 7, 14, 21, 28, 7, chiappo te sballotto. For example, it is one of the thousands of refrains that we have in my culture, in my region, for example. My grandmother said to me, the ticca de martellina fosse festa ogni mattina, voglio bere, voglio cantare, non me ne tenete faticare.
Let's hear it. How would you render it? Yeah.
Martellina fosse festa ogni mattina, voglio bere, voglio cantare, non me ne tenete faticare. For example, in this way is ticchete martellina fosse festa ogni mattina, voglio bere, voglio cantare, non me ne tenete faticare. Ticchete martellina fosse festa ogni mattina, voglio bere, voglio cantare. traditional, very, very beautiful song coming from around Napoli. The name is Oi Palomme. That is doing have a shock in the middle of the rhythm in 7/8. This is very, yes, inside, but the rhythm is doing this. Normal rhythm of the song. In cielo, 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 voglio fanare coi palomme. In cielo, 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 voglio fanare coi palomme. Tutte le rose scure del coperto, tutte le rose scure ai palomme. Tutte le rose scure del coperto, tutte le rose scure ai palomme. Una finestrella porta meglio parte o i palomme. Una finestrella porta meglio parte o i palomme. A tu ci appoggi tutto il bello piede, a tu ci appoggi il petto il palomme. A tu ci appoggi tutto sul bello piede, a tu ci appoggi il petto il palomme. Ticchete, ticchete, tomba. And it's very also interesting the balancing that we have with the syllabs in ternary way or in binary way. Ticka da ticka da ticka da ticka da ticka 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 da ticka da ticka da ticka da ticka 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 So you can find that in this way the instrument accompanied me and I go with him to this journey of the syllabs that looking for the poems. Because when I say the things that I say, it's not just blah, 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 but it talking about ticca da ticca da martellina, fosse festa ogni mattina, is a traditional refrain from my region, and also South Italy, that it means ticca da with a little hammer.
Yes.
Fosse festa ogni mattina, I would like to have party this morning, because I don't want to go work, I want to have a party with my people.
Right.
Non me ne tengo fatica. And another is in cielo ci voglio fanar coi palomme, in cielo ci voglio fanar coi palomme, tutte le rose scure del coperto, tutte le rose scure coi palomme. Is in the sky. I would like to do an Etruscan arco. In cielo ci voglio fanar coi palomme, full of roses. Tutte le rose scure del coperto, full of roses oi palomme. And this really, really nice and little bit bucolic, romantic poems also. And you talk about the syllabs, rhythm that working together. In the music,
in tradition, in my tradition, and also in the tradition of a lot of places in South Italy, the rhythm is really bound with the words, not with the music.
Right.
With the words, really. And if you have a composition that doing a ticka ticka ta 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 you play in this way. You don't play in one ticka ticka ta ta.
Right.
So following, and this is it's really.
So, so in our tradition, for example, we have two kinds of playing. Our percussion is basically split in two. One is the sarthak, one is the nirarthak. Nirarthak is meaningless. They're just mnemonic syllables. They mean nothing technically. For example, this is my composition. For example, this is meaningless, technically. I mean, some intelligent bum, or a fellow would try to be very intelligent. Oh, this means that. It means nothing. These are just syllables. These are just sounds of the drum. For God's sake, don't run and do anything. But then, there is a sarthak. Sarthak in our tradition, especially in the Gurbani tradition, would mean, as my teacher would say, once told me, extraordinary thing that he told me, Bhai Baldeep Singh Tarang, he says, my child, you're my brother's grandson. You're like my grandson. He would start like that with something important. He says, and he was now in a boasting mode. He was telling about himself. He says, I practiced so much that the entire scripture, entire Guru Granth Sahib had become the Paran of Pakhavaj. It had become all percussion syllables for me, the entire sacred scripture of the Sikhs. He says, I had practiced so hard. And it was not a joke, because people who remembered him, they would ask the singer to stop. They would say, why don't you play the sacred verses on the drum? So that art, for example, is to render like what you were doing. So it's fascinating for me. The reason I'm sharing with you this reference, like Guru Gobind's, for example, composition is the first verse in his very epic job. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. चक्र चहन अरबरण जात अरपात नहर जय एक बेक को कहन सकत कहे अचल मूरत अनुभव प्रकाश अमितोच कहिच कोटेन्द्रिंद्रान साहो साहान गणिच भवन महीप स्वर्णत असुर नेति नेति बंटन का तब सर्वनाम कथा कवन कर्मनाम वर्णसमति आदंता तट कर. Now this is 12 so चक्र चहन अरबरण जात अरपात नहर जय. So katra kenan tar dharan dhat. So the actual playing on the percussion has also been taught to me. So the rhythm goes, you will hear it. Chakra chahan ar varna jat, katra kenan tar dharan dhat. So like that. So this is fantastic for me to see that in the folklore, in the soil, Italian soil, still dances and sings to these tunes. They're fantastic. I have to, unfortunately, because I have a second session today at 6 p.m. with Maria Grazia Calandrone. we have been online for about an hour and only an hour and 33 minutes. And I think, like the goat skin of the Turkish drum, we were only warming up.
Yeah.
Right. But when my percussionist wakes up, I'm an animal. So I'm very ferocious, and I will not care for poetry. I will apologize in 5 days from Maria, but I will not want to do that. But in the last 5-7 minutes that we have, and I'm sure this is only the part one of our conversation. We will continue from where we are leaving in the next days. Maybe when you have when your itinerary permits, when I'm able to also I'm living in a sort of exile in a way. My government would be very happy that I'm not in the country and I'm just busy with music and not busy with politics. So they would be very happy. There are many people, every politician back in India, in the north of India especially, would be dancing in joy in these rhythms that you're sharing. But I will see when we can, we will coordinate and meet again and continue the conversation, because the idea of different rhythms, and my very dear friend, and her sister, Francesca Rondinella from Napoli, and Amelia Rondinella, their father, their uncle, Giacomo Rondinella. I've heard Francesca and Amelia play the duff and sing. Wow, Neapolitan classical music. And I'm looking forward to, also conversing with her. And it'll be fantastic. Believe you me, I'm telling my, friends who've joined, and fans and colleagues and, admirers and haters who listen in to what I'm doing, that it'll be fantastic too. Like you saw today, this is an amazing tradition, and this goes thousands of years back. This is not new. This is ancient. So, having said that, would you mind playing for us something native from which has a song and the drums? And then I will take your leave after that. That would be fantastic.
Okay. I will like to play for you my Camorra. This is that walking with me from long time ago.
I see.
And I bring this in the 5 continents. Yes.
I see.
South America, North America, not in Oceania. I'm sorry, he don't was in Oceania still, but maybe. And this is representing so much, really.
Now you can claim that it has also been to India through the cyberspace.
Yes.
But we will get you in person also to India soon. Yes, please.
Hopefully. And yes, it's just really thank you for inviting me to have
pleasure.
My thoughts. Yes, it's a blessing for the culture of the music to have.
Yes.
And
it's an
it's
honor
not
for me.
My poem. This poem. I say to you the poem and I play for you. Quanto vorrei essere fonte de paese, pa quando te inchini e bei con gli occhi chiusi, quanto vorrei essere fonte stamattina, pa sentire labbra tue così vicina. Cammino solo, me ne vago strano, cammino solo per un cammino vago, lo sole inzucca sulla testa mia, l'estate sitte bianca a ria. Quanto vorrei essere fonte de paese, ritte salite e silenziose chiese, l'oride dei flighi de lontano, la voce tua mi ricorda lo sono. E quando riapponcima sulla fonte e vedo il cammino ritto a valle, io penso pure alla vita mia che non vorria alla fine senza tua. Ma quando dentro te con gli occhi chiusi, quando vorreste fonte stamattina a sentire labbra tue così vicina. Cammino su, me ne vago strano, cammino su, è un cammino vago, il sole inzucca sulla testa mia, l'estate zitta e bianca ria. Il sole inzucca sulla testa mia, l'estate zitta e bianca ria.
Dritte salite silenziose chiese, dorite di gridi da lontano, la voce tua mi ricorda un suono, dorite di gridi da lontano, la voce tua mi ricorda un suono. E quando io cima sulla fonte e penso un cammino ritmo a valle, penso pure alla vita mia che non vorrei alla fine senza tua, che non vorrei alla fine senza tua, che non vorrei alla fine senza tua.
Fantastic. Oh, that was stunning. That was stunning. Absolutely brilliant. So, thank you so much. I'll, of course, be taking leave very shortly. One of my very dear friends, who's an Italian journalist based out of Delhi, Rita Chen, she had, she's requested this question for you, and she's requesting you to answer. Her query is more to do with music therapy, which is your other, the better, I don't know, the better half of you or the lesser half of you. So the question is, is it connected with sorcery? With the sorcery, is music therapy related with sorcery?
No, I don't really sorcery.
Sort like it's almost like to be a witch. Sorcero, come si dice in Italian? I don't know. Rita will have to tell me about that. To be a sorcerer, no, like a wizard. Is the idea of music therapy? It is traditional, ancient, or what?
No, the way
so you've studied the modern day music therapy. Is it like you do a degree or something which is more modern, or you do something ancient or traditional?
I think that I can bond with the question of the languages. Yes, I use the music therapy as one of the languages possibilities, the music, for exchange and create a bond with people that normally don't use other way to have a relation. For example, autistic, for example, elderly people with, I don't know, Alzheimer, or people that have some disease, for waking up for creating, for open relationship channels, for being more active in the normal in the life. So my way to create one intervention of music therapy is to work with people to find his sound identity.
Right.
The sounds that he likes and don't like, and we work in the.
But that is my point. Of course, jokes apart about sorcery and all that. The key. I mean, one, it's good to know that you don't fly on a broom.
No, I know.
That is one. But the other is that the therapy part. Did you study music therapy So you formally studied music therapy, and you help with the. So if I become old and if I have problems, you'll take care of me.
No, it's not about it's really a good path that I had with a lot of musicians that come to me and discover a lot of
interesting
All
things.
right. Thank you so much, Paolo. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of everyone who's joined, and India, and of course, Italia has suffered a lot, and you've shown the whole world how to take death with dignity, how to take care of the elderly and the young, and how to manage resources when the calamity is so hard. And I can only offer my condolences to the families of those who lost. And of course, my greetings to everyone else, and my salutations to the frontline workers, including the doctors and the nurses and the drivers and the health services workers and the scientists and the doctors who have been working at the forefront. So thank you so much, and I hope your healing touch would have cleansed and the cyber spaces. I mean, our tradition in in Darbar Sahib, in the Gurbani Sangeet, they say the very first sound that is played before the sacred verses are sung is the playing of the drums. They say, why? They say when it plays the dha, it causes ripples around, and the demonic energies are washed away. They just are like a tsunami taken away. So I hope that our percussion session would have caused some beautiful energy and ripples, beautiful ripples for the, and maybe the virus will float away serving on that. My greetings to you and to your family. Thank you so much, and we will meet soon. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.
Thank you to you, Mr. Bhai, to invite me other time.
Yes.
And try to be the good bond between the youngers and the elders in the middle, with the tradition and the sounds and the music, sculptures and landscape.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So ਦੋਸਤੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਪਾਓਲੋ ਰੋਸੈਟੀ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਸ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਆਨੰਦ ਲਿਆ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਾਰਤਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਮਝੀ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਸਮਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਤਿਆਰੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਬੜੀ ਛੇਤੀ। 6 ਵਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਲਿੰਕ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਫੇਸਬੁੱਕ ਤੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਲਾਈਵ ਹੋਵਾਂਗਾ। ਇਹ ਟੁੱਟ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਇਟ ਹੈਡ ਬ੍ਰੋਕਨ, ਇਟ ਵਾਸ ਬਿਯੋਂਡ ਮਾਈ ਮਾਈਟ। ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਚਾਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਰੀਕਨੈਕਟ ਕਰਦਾ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਜੁੜੇ, ਮੈਂ ਬੜਾ ਸ਼ੁਕਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰ ਹਾਂ। 6 ਵਜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਕਵਿਤਰੀ ਹੈ, ਕਵੀ ਹੈ ਇਟਲੀ ਦੀ, ਯੂਰਪ ਦੀ, ਮਾਰੀਆ ਗ੍ਰਾਜ਼ੀਆ ਕਲੰਦਰੋ ਨੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ 6 ਵਜੇ ਜੁੜਾਂਗੇ। ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ 5 ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਰਜਮਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਇਟਾਲੀਅਨ 'ਚ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੇਤੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੋਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦਾ ਤਰਜਮਾ ਹੀ ਭੇਜ ਸਕਿਆ ਸੀ। ਉਹ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਵੀ ਸੁਣਾਂਗੇ, 3 4 5 ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 5 ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਰਜਮਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਇਟਾਲੀਅਨ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਤੇ ਛੇਤੀ ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ 6 ਵਜੇ। ਸਤਿਕਰਤਾਰ, ਖੁਦਾ ਹਾਫਿਜ਼, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, very good evening to you all, and Satkartar.